Hello and welcome. This is Eric Miskell with EMS Now, and welcome to this edition of EMS Now Up Close. Today I'm speaking again with Chintan Sutaria, who's the CEO of CalcuQuote. Chintan, good to see you again. Happy 2022.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot going on, and we're leading into Apex next week, and a lot to talk about here. For the last year, we've been going through kind of historic times here in the industry, right? With a lot of material supply chain challenges, labor challenges, transportation. I mean, it goes on, right? And COVID, there's so many things kind of hitting the industry, a lot of disruption. So I wanted to start kind of general with you because I think you have a good pulse on a lot of things happening in the industry. So start generally, what is CalcuQuote doing to help the industry with the current supply chain issues?
Yeah, several things. The way we kind of break it down is we see several stages of supply chain disruption, and we try to have a solution as we progress into that. Now, there's some things that, of course, we're software, we're not magic, and so there's some things you just can't deal with from our perspective. But if you think about the stages of disruption, the first stage being that components aren't readily available at the supplier you work with, right? So I typically buy this component from this source and they are out of stock. I need to look wider and I need to make that wider search more efficient for myself. That's where our flagship product, our API integrations with the distribution starts to be really valuable because you can simultaneously search really 99% of the inventory that's in the market through distribution instantly. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is that as you start to find the parts, as availability becomes more and more sparse, you have to execute faster on the order, because what happens is, oh, I saw the part that was there. By the time I got around to ordering it and my supplier confirmed the order back to me, somebody else snatched up those parts. So efficiency of finding the parts, but also efficiency of executing the order. So that's where ShopCQ is something that we really have seen a lot of traction on in the last 6 months, where people just want to be faster at executing those orders. And then the third thing is, as we get into kind of the stage that we're entering now, or that I'll say have already entered, is the parts not only are they not available at your primary supplier, but they're generally not available. There's long lead times you're dealing with. It's not a temporary issue, it's a longer term issue. And in those cases, it gets back to BOM redesign. It gets back to finding alternates of the components that you typically have on the bill of material. From an EMS provider's perspective, it's being value added to your customer, saying, hey, customer, you have this bill of material. I'd like to enhance it for you so you can actually meet your schedule. And from that perspective, we actually have something that we're working on that's an R&D project right now, but basically it is very good at intelligently identifying relationships between part numbers using machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, as well as a fairly robust algorithm for just deciphering what is the meaning of a part and its relationships, so that it can actually take part numbers and start suggesting to you alternates based on pattern recognition and parametric information and so on.
Okay, so there was a lot there. Let's unpack some.
Yes.
You said that, so it's 99% of, we're talking authorized channel primarily, right? Is what that is. But in these times, there's a lot that is going to brokers, right? That is coming through brokers. I heard you interviewed CEO of an EMS recently who said whoever, it's spot buys. Whoever's the quickest spot buys is the one who wins. How do you account for that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few different ways. One is in terms of the spot buys. If you're dealing with brokers and things like that, of course, you can still interact with them through our platform. And we, in fact, have a lot of customers that do use CalcuQuote platform in general to be able to identify, communicate with, and source from all different channels, right? Mm-hmm. The way that we do that is, aside from the API portion of how we get information from the authorized channels, with a lot of brokers, what they'll do is they'll have feeds set up. So they'll say, hey, I have these part numbers that are available, you let me know, or I have a line card set up, or I have, just send me parts that you can't find as exceptions and I'll look at it. So we have several automation programs in place to help you source in those types of environments as well.
Okay, good. Now I've heard it said before that there's a sense that there's a lot of, call it what you want, hoarding, stockpiling of inventory in the industry at various things. What's your sense of that? And I mean, do you get a sense that some of that is actually happening, that people are kind of keeping their powder dry for another time, or?
So this is my take on it, and I'll qualify this with the types of customers we work with are generally a homogeneous group. They're high mix, low volume EMS companies, right? They might be big, they might be small, but really they do all kinds of different small to mid-sized volume, right? And in those cases, what I see is, I mean, while they would like to be hoarding the right parts, what ends up actually happening is you end up having 99 of the parts you need and the one is missing. And so you're not intentionally hoarding the 99, but it's not like you're going to go return them because that one might show up tomorrow or might show up in a year. And so what ends up happening is it creates a lot of inefficiencies. A good analogy is, you know, you want to make dinner, but your neighbor's got the sugar and you've got the salt, right? Like you need both of them, but everybody's got their pieces of it. So inventory levels, I think, from talking to customers, are going dangerously high from an EMS company's perspective. They're holding more inventory, tying up their cash. But I don't think it's by design. I think it's by the volatility of the supply chain forcing them to have more parts on hand.
That makes sense. And what about the impact of kind of double ordering, people over ordering in hopes of getting more, right? That whole, how do your systems kind of identify and account for that?
So in terms of double ordering, I mean, we don't prevent
over ordering.
Over ordering. So I'll say people are definitely hedging their bets, but one of the ways that I think CalcuQuote helps in that situation is if you think about what ShopCQ does. So you have the order API integration with the suppliers, right? So what happens is it's an instant confirmation that you have your parts. And so from that perspective, it's like, well, you don't have to wait and hope to see that you're going to get the parts. It's like, well, I know that they're there or that they're inbound or whatever, and I'm going to have those parts committed to me upon arrival, right? So that definitely helps because it's now, it's taking the delay communication out of it. It's like within seconds, you're going to get that response. So that's one part of it. The other thing that I think causes a little bit of, I'll call it buyer's remorse, right? Is when you buy a part, you have to now start thinking about how much does the part cost, and what did I quote it at, and has the price fluctuated, and now I have to go get permission. The customer said no, you don't have permission to buy it at the higher price. There's all these scenarios that happen, and one of the things that we feel like we're leading the charge on is how can we translate the business rules of a lot of the suppliers have this idea of we're going to honor the quote we gave you, right, for a fixed period of time. So if it's 30 days or whatever, they're going to honor that quote for 30 days. So we've actually started to build that into the automated workflow. So DigiKey was the first supplier we built that integration with and just released a few weeks ago. But basically what it does is it says, we're going to look at your quote history with DigiKey, all the API transactions and everything, and we're going to give you the best price guarantee from the last 30 days. So whatever is the best price we quoted you, that's what you get. That way there's no, I wonder if this price is okay kind of conversation. You're going to get the best price that you were going to get.
Mm-hmm. What about the reverse of that, the escalation? Is there some escalation clause that can say for, because, like I was saying, if you have to get it quickly when it comes on the market or comes available, you have to go get permission from the EMS, has to go to the OEM and then come back. By the time it comes back, the parts may not be there available anymore. So are you building in some escalation clauses to account for that?
In the software itself, no, because so the way we kind of deal with that is that speed is the way we look at the solution there is rather than speed and I guess stability of the information, right? So what I mean by that is the reason that it requires an escalation clause would be because there is a time lapse between when you did the quote and then when the customer decided to place the order and then when you place the order to your supplier. And sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months. And in this environment, it's really on everybody's plate to make decisions quickly and execute quickly. And so the way we treat that is we focus on the speed part of it. So a good example of that is we just had one of our customers go live with this where they put their quoting engine entirely on their website. You can instantly request a quote, get the turnkey quote presented to you. And then if you're interested, you just click place an order and it'll automatically trigger their system behind the scenes to buy the parts. And now the the parts are going to cost this price and they're available here, and this is where the shortages are, and this is where the issues are, and this is how you're going to fix it and everything.
Okay, excellent.
That was a lot of words.
That was a lot of words, but that is described it. Say, listen, another thing I want to touch base with you on, well, was your role, because we were talking before and your role has kind of changed within CalcuQuote and what your focus is. Why don't you speak to that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I feel really proud about CalcuQuote is we've always kind of moved the industry forward. That's been our tagline for as long as, as long as I can remember internally, for sure. And we kind of made that official in the last couple of years, is to say, we're going to move the industry forward. And sometimes that's, we are the first ones out the gate and we stumble a little bit as we get started. But what we found is we like to lead the industry. And so as a result, my role has kind of shifted to focus on finding new solutions to age-old problems, right? So an example would be how we're working on this solution for finding alternate parts. It's really just turning the whole thing on its head to say, wait, we don't have to think about it in this traditional way of, only a parametric search or only associations to internal part numbers and customer APLs. There is a different way of thinking of it. So my role is more on the new business exploration, R&D, finding new problems to solve in the industry, which is very exciting for me. But at least based on the conversations that I've had with customers, is I think it's a valuable thing for the industry to have people working on just what's going to be new, what's going to be the next thing.
Yeah, because the next disruption's coming. There's industry is certainly growing and expanding and maturing. So, and that's exciting for you then. So do you work mostly with the software developers and your team around those, or you also work with your clients and kind of doing the whole problem?
Yeah, no, so my role primarily, I'm in front of customers, just talking to them about what are your biggest challenges? What do you want to work on solving first and foremost related to electronics supply chain, right? And so it's cool because there's so much potential if we start to look at other industries and how they've progressed past a certain stage, right? So blockchain has come up quite a bit of how can we get traceability all the way from the original manufacturer of the part, traceability all the way through to prevent counterfeits, to prevent double ordering like you were describing earlier. If you want to have a true picture of where the inventory is and where the bottlenecks are, blockchain is one of those solutions. One prerequisite for that is part numbering schemes, right? How are you going to universally identify part numbers? And that's what we're starting with right now because we view it as a prerequisite. But the long-term vision here is better connectedness leads to better transparency, leads to more resilience in the supply chain.
Okay, excellent. That's exciting. So I look forward to some news from CalcuQuote in the future then, I would hope. So.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. There's in the next few months, I think you're going to see us announcing some really cool, innovative new things.
Excellent. Now, before we kind of wrap and talk about Apex a bit, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about what CalcuQuote is doing to kind of help with in the current environment?
So one thing that I think just in the current environment that's been key is, and I touched on this just a little bit, but because of our focus on speed of quoting, speed of buying, speed of executing orders, everything. One of the things that we've been really promoting, and you're going to see us talking about this a lot at Apex next week as well, is our port CQ solution. So, many people have probably seen on, there's several companies out there that have it on their website to say request an instant quote. What we've done is we've created a package software that you can deploy to your website, make it look like your own website, make it look like your own branding. And it creates this, let's not call it quick turn, let's call it ultra quick turn, instant online e-commerce experience. So if you think about, what the distributors did where they pushed everybody to their website to execute transactions and look for parts, now EMS companies can have the power to do a similar type of thing.
Okay. And is that so? What you're bringing there is you're bringing the expertise, so you're saving the people the time to have to spend however God knows how many hours developing their own solution. It's kind of a solution.
Yeah, so basically we already have several customers that have deployed it, and without naming names, you'll recognize companies that have already deployed our solution by visiting their websites. But the point is that, yeah, it's a choice between, do I custom build everything and hire a development firm and spend a year and a half on it? Or do I have the entire CalcuQuote engine, which is already really powerful, and I just skin it to look like my website and deploy it, in a matter of a couple of weeks?
Okay, excellent. And so that moves us forward towards Apex next week. We will both be there. You will be performing, I'll just be touring. So, what you say, is that a lot of it going to be just the, like you said, the port CQ? That's the big.
Yeah, the big thing is the port CQ that we're really excited about, because we are seeing a lot of enthusiasm from our customers about it, and they want to see it. They want to see how it works. They want to see how it works in their situation. The other thing that is really exciting is as we get into this whole ecosystem of speed of execution, one big part of that is, how do we now tie that into existing systems, right? So your ERP system and things like that also needs to keep up with the pace of your connectedness to your supply chain. So the other thing that we're going to be doing is we've already kind of talked about this through a webinar, but we're going to be showing it at the show of how we integrate into CTech ERP. So CalcuQuote basically can now really take you through that entire life cycle, tying in to the ERP to synchronize the bill of material, work with the MRP to make sure that 80–90% of the MRP is automatically handled. So if you're a buyer, you can now focus on the problem parts instead of on the onesie twosie stuff that's going to be just a tedious exercise of data entry.
Right. So people can come to your booth and they can see demonstrations of this and with you and your team there. I believe, let me double check the number here, your booth number, it should be 2033 at Apex next week. We're all kind of curious to see how the show goes. I think there's still some concern and some reluctance, and it might impact the attendance, but hopefully it's something like what happened at Productronica. I heard that even though the attendance was down, the quality of the attendance was very good, because it was people had to have a justified reason to go. They weren't just tourists looking to have a bunch of pens, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're excited to meet our customers. It's been a couple of years since we've been out in front of our customers visiting in person. So we're ready to get out there. The team is vaccinated, feels comfortable kind of doing that face-to-face interaction, which, it's necessary to kind of get in front of people and build those relationships.
Absolutely. No, that's critical. And I'm glad that it's returning, right? We'll see how that goes. Chintan, thank you very much. I will see you next week. I'll make a point of stopping by and having a look myself. We talk about it, but it's always good to see it demonstrated live, right? And get a better sense of it. So, so I wish you continued success in the new role, and safe travels to San Diego next week.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Thank you, sir.